Sea conjures up images of the ancient Persian Empire and the Silk Road. Or at least that's how we can kid ourselves into painting a picture in our mind's eye of the adventurous area to visit. I usually veer away from the word adventure, an unusual, exciting or daring experience. I would never say that the places we visited particularly excited me, or did I even consider them to be daring, although a lot of our motorhome friends probably thought that some of the places we went were a little unusual. Rachel and I were never really the types to keep going back to the same places. We like to explore new countries and new places. However, we did spend 10 weeks in Andalusia once. Left the motorhome at Alicante, flew home, and then returned 5 weeks later and headed across to the Balkans. I think it was that journey to the Balkans that sowed the seed for us to maybe push the boundaries a little bit further afield. So in 2018, we headed off southeast. Our first goal was Mostar, Bosnia. Due to a very complicated insurance arrangement, we only had 6 days to get there. That was from northern England, which meant 300 miles a day, every day, for those 6 days. I was armed, no pun intended, with some knowledge which I decided not to share with Rachel. A few years back, we met some fellow campervanners at the Arctic Circle in Norway, and we stayed in touch ever since. In fact, I'm still in touch with them. Anyway, when they learnt that we were heading to Mostar, AD got in touch with me and said, yes, they'd been there, parked the van up, went sightseeing. When they returned, the van had been completely cleaned out. Well, I really wanted to go to Mostar, and I thought maybe it was best that I didn't share this information with Rachel. Well, not until we'd been. During my usual research, I had a good look at a Google map for Mostar and noticed there was in fact a building called Sniper Tower. It has now been renamed on Google Maps as Abandoned Building, which apparently was an old bank. Anyway, as we drove into Mostar after our 6 days on the road, we went down a fairly narrow street. It seemed strange that people seemed to be just running out of their houses and waving and gesticulating at us. I continued down the street until I couldn't go any further, when there was a very large man standing in the middle of the road, pointing for us to go into a very small parking area. Well, I didn't really have any other options. He was a big man. So anyway, I turned in between two buildings which had walls which were bullet riddled, obviously from the war back in '93. So he helped me to park in the appropriate place and then came up with some fee, which I thought was far too much to park there. Shall we say we had a fairly peaceful negotiation until we got down to a price I found was acceptable. It was a little bit difficult. I had to use all my tact, if in fact I do actually have any, because I didn't want to upset this rather large man. Anyway, we both settled on a price and everything was fine. That wasn't until 11 o'clock at night. Rachel and I were in bed in the van and we heard a couple of cars pull up, the doors opening and slamming shut. Lots of voices very close to the van. Eventually, I thought, I need to have a look and see what's going on outside. Well, one of the men was carrying something which, no, it wasn't a gun, it was an umbrella. And they all just walked off, obviously to a bar or a restaurant. So there was no need to worry. After just one night in Mostar, we headed south into Croatia with the intention of visiting Dubrovnik, but I just could not find a place to park the 4.5-ton van. So although there was a parking place several miles out where we could get the boat into Dubrovnik, we were still on a bit of a tight time scale. So we continued south into Montenegro. After briefly visiting Kotor, we carried on south and entered Albania. Now, we found a campsite. A lot of these countries don't actually allow wild camping, and the campsites really aren't quite camping and caravan club standards. But nevertheless, we found this campsite on the shores of a lake. Unfortunately, the lake had partially flooded the site. Anyway, the lady said yes, it was fine for us to stay, but she wouldn't accept any money at all. She even got her mother to clean the toilets out before we went in, and they were immaculate. I'll never forget the kindness that was shown to us by that lady. We carried on south to the capital Tirana. We didn't stop there, apart from at red traffic lights, where it seemed to be common practice that beggars approached the vehicles demanding money. Not with menaces, though. There was nothing quite so threatening as that. Anyway, we never really had a problem. Got clear of the city until two guys in a lay-by with a Mercedes car waved us down. Now, call me the suspicious type, but I thought it was probably a good idea not to stop. It could have been in all innocence, but I wasn't going to take the chance. Anyway, we carried on and then headed east into Macedonia, where we spent a night with Rachel's cousin. The next day, we were back into our beloved Albania. We went to visit the Roman site at Butrint and spent one night there. Whereupon, we got the world's most expensive ferry, about 100 metres across a short stretch of water. It was €10. It was a push-me-pull-you kind of ferry, nothing salubrious, as you will see from the photographs. And then 12 miles the other side, we were into Greece. We found a nice parking area to stop for a brew and gazed out across the Ionian Sea to an island. And Rachel said, "What's that island?" And I said, "Corfu." And with that, we went.